Random House Audio presents The Pontiff in Winter, Triumph and Conflict in the Reign of John Paul II by John Cornwell. Read for you by Graeme Malcolm.
John Paul the Great. Karol Wojtyła, Pope John Paul II has shown himself to be a man of rare depth of soul, an evangelist of tireless energy who travelled to the ends of the earth to spread the Christian gospel. Priest and prophet, he acted to conserve the traditions of the Catholic Church, while urging transformation in preparation for a millennial springtime of the Spirit. He raised the consciousness of his Polish countrymen by exposing the sterility of Soviet totalitarian rule. He preached freedom as a characteristic of our humanity. But he warned of the danger in capitalist democracies of liberty that lacked moral culture. He presented to the world an original understanding of Christian humanism and saw marital sex as an icon of the Trinitarian God. He served for Christian unity, reaching out to Eastern Orthodoxy and the churches and communions separated from Rome by the Reformation. And all the while he toiled, despite encroaching illness, pain, and old age, to maintain the unity and continuity of the Catholic faith. As Shakespeare's Kent says of the passing of King Lear, "The wonder is he hath endured so long, he but usurped his life." His ardent supporters among the faithful seem justified in hailing him Karol the Great. But there is a parallel rather than an alternative Catholic version, rarely expressed in public in deference to a taboo that forbids criticism of living and even dead popes. A widespread constituency of Catholics, men and women, clergy and bishops throughout the world, are convinced that John Paul has drawn so tightly on the reins of universal authority that he has weakened and undermined the discretion, the authority, the integrity, and the strength of the local diocesan church. They believe that while appearing triumphant in the world at large, he is leaving his church in a state of weakness and conflict. This centralizing papal dynamic over more than a quarter of a century has had profound consequences, of which the complex scenario of the sexual abuse by priests is but one example. The systemic corruption of clerical sexual abuse revealed a dimension of paralysis and vacillation on the part of local bishops and senior clergy who attempted to conceal and deny it. Undermined by years of centralizing papal rule, there was a tendency for local church leaders to look over their shoulders to Rome, where initiative and authority was deemed to reside in all matters. And yet, action was not forthcoming from the papal pinnacle. Indifference and complacency were found right up to John Paul himself, until world indignation left Rome no choice but to acknowledge the crisis. His failure to recognize from the outset a complex set of crises within the priesthood and to handle them appropriately contrasts starkly with harsh exclusions of those who failed to achieve the high standards of sexual morality he set for Catholic laity. John Paul advocated exclusion from the life of grace those Catholics who had divorced and remarried. Some 50% of Catholic marriages end in divorce in Western countries, or who lived in unmarried partnerships or in homosexual relationships. His hard line on all forms of contraception in any circumstances alienated generations of the faithful, many of whom fell away. In Africa, while agencies were right to warn against encouraging promiscuity through free distribution of condoms to the young, he took an extreme stance. His insistence that condoms should not be used in any circumstances condemned untold numbers of Catholic AIDS sufferers to certain death. He excluded women from any future hope of priestly ministry, not only within his own pontificate, but by attempting to legislate for his papal successors for all time. He shut his ears to pleas for married clergy, and he rejected requests for laicization by priests who had married and started families, refusing them the sacraments. While making a show of encouraging interfaith dialogue and urging ecumenism, he characterized other religions, that is, non-Christian religions, as defective, claiming that many Christian denominations, including the Anglican, Episcopalian denominations, were not proper churches, their priests and bishops not proper priests and bishops. Despite his deep longing to come to an accord with the Russian Orthodox Church, he established Roman Catholic dioceses in Russia in defiance of the concerns of the entire Eastern Church. His debility in his latter days has exposed the long-term consequences of his autocratic papal rule. He has become a living sermon of patience and fortitude, appealing to the sympathies of the entire world. But the billion-strong Church has been run increasingly by his Polish secretary and a handful of aging reactionary cardinals. We have had a papacy in which a pope utters virtual heresy, bishops and faithful are told they may not discuss women priesthood, a curial cardinal teaches that condoms kill, prelates guilty of having shielded pedophiles are honored, and a U.S. president exploits the papacy as an election campaign stop. To understand John Paul, as he himself has declared often enough, is an exercise in penetrating the inner man. "They try to understand me from the outside," he once said, "but I can only be understood from the inside." Unlike his predecessor, John the 23rd, who spoke constantly from the heart, John Paul has revealed his personality in theatrical displays that have enraptured and beguiled his huge audiences. Exploiting modern broadcast communications to their fullest extent, his omnipresence and monopoly of the limelight has reduced within his church all other authority, all other holiness, unless dead, all other comparisons, voices, images, talents, and virtues. He is the legislator, the single dispenser of blessings, beneficence, and wisdom. There is no hidden corner of the Church where he is not present, heard, read, and where he is not absolute. This has been a big papacy, difficult, if not impossible, to capture in the round. His story has been told already in many different ways. I do not attempt to compete with the thoroughness of earlier biographies, a comprehensiveness that tends to weigh down its extraordinary subject like a diamond set in lead. This new portrait of John Paul, written in the ominous light of the post-millennium period in which religious fundamentalism offers the greatest threat to world peace, tells the story of a pontiff who has matched remarkable talents with corresponding frailties and foibles. His pontificate has seen opportunities crowned with success and opportunities lost. The power and timing of his initiatives in Poland were impeccable. But at a time when fundamentalist religions are in antagonistic confrontation with the West, his most tragic failure has been his refusal to acknowledge the potential for discovering within Christianity a basis for pluralist societies. The impression, moreover, that John Paul alone is the main event in the Catholic Church has taken Catholicism in the direction of papal fundamentalism, the idea that Catholic beliefs and values are handed in a mandatory fashion top-down. Under John Paul, the Catholic Church has become the voice of one man in a white robe pronouncing from a pinnacle of the apostolic palace, rather than a conversation between past, present, and future, between many cultures, ethnicities, and spiritualities, between the Church universal and the Church local, wherever people gather for the Eucharist. The questions arise, how and why should this have come about? And what does this situation mean for the future of Catholicism? John Paul is a human being. He is eminently, outstandingly, and impressively human. But reacting to the burdens and temptations of his ancient and impossible office, the crises of the times, and the persuasions of his devotees, he has run the papal office as if he were a superman. But a superman has no place in a church of communities that require to be fully themselves in their smallest groups, that flourish and gather strength from their own local resources as well as from the Roman centre. Another superman on the throne of St. Peter can only continue the tragic process of abdication of responsibility.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?